They can go to our website, jvshumanservices.org. And if they're looking for help with a resume, cover letter, networking, we can work with them one-on-one. We have a program called Career Counseling, which is a really fantastic program for people looking to make a change in careers, a shift, but have no idea how to make that decision or what they might be interested in or good at. And over on average an 8 to 10 week process, we utilize a variety of assessments, looking at skills, interests, motivators, work styles. Our staff help to interpret the results of those assessments to give somebody a career path. We've seen a lot of people saying, this pandemic has thrown a curveball. And so what an opportunity I have now to pause and think about, what do I want to do where I can go to work and be excited, happy, motivated? And so we've seen a real uptick in the career counseling requests. But career counseling isn't for everybody. People that know what they want to do, we can help them also.
That from yesterday's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Good Tuesday morning. I am Tyler Kieft in the studios of 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake. Today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast begins in just a couple of seconds. Happy Tuesday morning. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield. We are also on 88.1 WBFH The Biff and on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Today we are on the Facebook page of Oakland University as well. And as always, I'm joined in her home studio by Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, do you ever start your day with one of those mornings where you're like, what next?
Yes. In fact, today is exactly one of those days. It's just what next. And it's almost at this point like a challenge. Bring it on. You know?
Bring it on. You know, you're gonna tackle the day.
Exactly.
Whatever life throws at you, you're still gonna tackle the day.
Heck yeah.
It's been like that for me. Just like, it's like the littlest things, you know, like we knew the printer kept saying toner low, and of course it goes out on me, and then I have to run and, you know, print things off and this, that, the other. It's just like,
oh, it's okay. It's always something, you know. It's those, and you can kind of see it coming too, like those little tiny things. Like last night before the school board meeting, you know, we had a school board meeting. It was a big interest point for a lot of people in the community with the conversations about potentially down the road consolidating their elementary schools or closing one potential elementary school. And so it's a big meeting. And a few minutes before the meeting is going, we're getting all of our technical stuff going. We're switching things over, monitoring things, and all of a sudden, the schools channel, WBTV 19, that we're also on right now, went out. We had a converter that went bad in our server room. We had to get the beep bops and the boop boops back up this morning to get it back and going, and it's all fine now. But of course that happened, you know, just a couple minutes before the school board meeting. So there's always something that's going to be there to trying to find good wording for it, challenge you, let's say.
You know what I think it is? It's to push us out of our comfort zones and
true.
Our routines.
That's true. We're growing as people. Yes.
So I will say, talking about the meeting last night, I logged in because, as many of you know, I do live in Keego Harbor, and one of the schools that they're talking about potentially closing is Roosevelt Elementary, which is it's an icon here in the Keego Harbor community, just celebrating being open for 100 years. And now it's one of the schools that is possibly being slated to close. So it's been a huge, huge topic here in the Keego Harbor community, and a very passionate topic as well. So I logged into the meeting, and I think a lot of people were happy to understand and to know that they're going to take that conversation further and do a lot more studies before they make a final decision. And Tyler, I know that while you don't live in the community, you're kind of stuck logging into all of these meetings as well. But I think they were prepared for like this big, long, passionate time frame. And then, it was like, wait, no, we've heard you, which is the good thing about the power of the community.
Yes.
Is coming together, being passionate about an issue, coming together and making sure your voice is heard. And I think because of that is one of these reasons why the West Bloomfield School District has made the decision that it has made.
Yeah, and I think that there's always passions that are going to flow whenever there's a potential for school closures in any community, in any part of a community. It's happened before in our local area. It's happened before here in the West Bloomfield School District specifically. And so, tensions tend to flare, emotions tend to flare even more during that period of time. And then as more information comes out and the dust kind of settles, things do calm down a little bit and cooler heads do prevail. And so learning more about the process that the school district is taking, I think definitely helped inform a lot of people, especially in the Keego Harbor community and the Sylvan Lake community with kids that do go to Roosevelt, and kind of ease their tensions, at least initially, knowing that nothing is imminent regarding Roosevelt. Sure, there's a possibility out there in the ether that Roosevelt could be chosen to be closed in an elementary school consolidation model, but that more research, more deliberation, more community input, more school district input is going to go into that decision in the coming months. And it isn't something that the school district, I don't believe, ever initially planned or had planned to make a decision on so quickly in just a matter of a couple of weeks. And that information just needed to be reciprocated to the community in a clear and concise way, as it was last night by Dr. Hill and by the school board, so that the community knew what was going on and could join in on the process in an informed way.
Yeah, I believe we're having the superintendent on the show.
Yeah.
I think it's tomorrow.
It is.
So we'll get a chance to, dive a little deeper into the topic, because that's what we do here on the Oakland County Megacast. But I will say, Tyler, because of the extra little steps and hooplas this morning, I have not had a chance to have my coffee. So I'm trying to get it in right now. And I'm all about my coffee cup. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, wait, coffee.
I saw a dog. I see the paw prints.
I just want to drink coffee and pet my dog.
Yeah.
And so Tyler, do you do a holiday card at all with your cats?
I have not done a holiday card with my cats. No, I just got them right after the holidays last year, and then I have not done anything with them holiday card related this year now.
Well, Tyler, you need to do one. It's your first holiday with your cats. You need to do a card.
Yeah, if I could make them stand still for a split second, sure. I mean, there's two of them, so I only have so much quickness and agility and attention to keep one from running away than the other. Yesterday I spent 15 minutes trying to make sure that one cat wasn't eating both bowls of food, so that the other one wouldn't go all day without eating.
I think so I can get a picture of cat is a little one kitty cat that's a little piggy. But hey, yes. So Tyler, the thing is you're very tech savvy. Photoshop. So my brother, our holiday card is like a production every year. One year we were reindeers. One year we were penguins. We were Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, anything. And the dog, by the way, has to be in all of them. So the dog was a reindeer. The dog was a penguin. It's become a production. So we had a Cocker Spaniel who used to be great. She was old. You can do anything with her. Dress her up any way you want. She just sit there. Now we have this. She passed away last year. We fostered a dog, which once you foster a dog, the dog's staying. We've never had a big dog. And so now Trixie is a part of our life. And while she's cute as a button with us, she's not so nice with other people. So my brother comes over to do our photo shoot for our card, and I keep telling him, hey, Trixie's not like Katie. You can't just get her to because you can't, when you come over, you can't look her in the eye. So you have to ease into the introduction, and you can't look her in the eye, but he wants to come over and start taking pictures right away with Trixie. It's like, rah, rah, rah. but we got a couple cute ones. And so hopefully, but he's a master at Photoshop. And so they turned out cute. We ordered them. The one photo should be making an appearance on Fox 2 as they start to roll out their house. So look for that. But I think, Tyler, because you have such skills, you could do a great something fun with you and your cats.
I'll have to test things out if I get some time.
That's the thing, you never get
any
time,
right? It's a big if, yes.
Oh, so with that, I guess we should jump into the show at some point in time.
Sure,
but again,
let's go ahead.
I'm like out of sorts. I am so out of sorts, Tyler. I'll just go ahead in a minute. But so if we want to jump into the headlines, of course, everyone's talking about the first COVID-19 vaccines administered here in the state of Michigan. 2 Michigan hospital systems administered the first COVID-19 vaccinations in the state on Monday, injecting the Michigan-produced Pfizer vaccine into frontline workers. Ann Arbor-based Michigan Medicine, I have a girlfriend that works there, and then Spectrum Health's Butterworth Hospital in Grand Rapids were the first to begin vaccinating workers in the state. The beginning of a massive inoculation rollout in Michigan expected to expand to other hospital systems in the coming days. Michigan Medicine, the University of Michigan Health System, received a morning shipment of 1,950 doses. Spectrum expects to receive nearly 5,000 by the end of the week. Spectrum and Michigan Medicine, though, each only vaccinated 5 health workers on Monday, and they plan to ramp up the vaccination starting on Tuesday. And I found this next part interesting. I think a lot of us don't understand this. Each vial of the vaccine must be thawed and diluted to make 5 doses, because remember, it has to be stored at those extremely cold temperatures. So you can't just whip it out and start to make a vaccine with it. So there's a process involved in this. The shots also come as the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services reported Monday that the state has now tallied 437,985 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 10,752 related deaths since the virus was first detected here in the state of Michigan this past March. But I think for so many people, they look at this vaccine as hope on the horizon, Tyler.
Yeah. I mean, it's slowly but surely going to be distributed, but any distribution of the vaccine, having a vaccine is better than not having a vaccine. So there's some hope there because it's going to be it's going to be distributed slowly, but it's still going to be getting out there into the public, and it will eventually get to the general public, and hopefully a few months down the road, halfway through 2021, maybe a little bit longer than that, we'll be out of all this and back to some semblance of normalcy.
Which means, Tyler, I'll have to go figure out what I'm going to do with my life, because the Oakland County Megacast will go away post-pandemic.
We'll see about that. I'm not sure.
I will say it's been a great format, and I do like the fact that we get to talk to so many people. But also, Michigan, when we're talking about the coronavirus, it's still here. Obviously, still a big issue here in the state. The state tracking 188 new outbreaks. So the Michigan is tracking 1,268 active COVID-19 outbreaks, including 188 new clusters reported over the last week. Long-term care facilities remain the most common setting for known outbreaks, due in part to mandated regular testing, with 53 new outbreaks and 430 ongoing outbreaks. That's according to the Department of Health and Human Services. K through 12 schools and manufacturing and construction sites remain the second and third most common settings, with 25 and 25 new outbreaks. Outbreaks linked to retail settings jumped over the last week, really not surprising, from 40 known cases, or clusters rather, to 80. State Health Department updates its online outbreak tracker weekly on Mondays. The week's update included 1,268 active outbreaks, but the good news, it is down slightly from 1,291 as of December 7th. So we are seeing some of the numbers drop, which is a little bit surprising considering Thanksgiving, but that is the good news. And hopefully the numbers will continue to go down, because you have to remember, Tyler, I think so much focus right now is on the vaccine. People are thinking, oh, we can go back to life as we used to know it, but that is still months away.
Yeah, it's still going to be quite a while before we can slowly but surely transition back to normalcy. The vaccine being out there is not the end-all, be-all. People have to be vaccinated, and then we have to make sure that that vaccine is effective in eradicating the virus altogether. So there's still a long way to go, and good news that these outbreaks have been somewhat minimized, and the positive case numbers in Michigan are continuing to slowly but surely drop. That's nothing significant, probably not even significant enough of a drop to end the current pause that is in effect from the Department of Health and Human Services, which will expire on the 20th. But nonetheless, it is a reduction in the surge that we had seen in mid-November through currently, and that is always going to be good news.
Yeah, 5 days left in the pause, Tyler. A lot of these businesses, especially the restaurant industry, they're really, really hoping that they're going to be able to reopen in some capacity. The ones that can't offer carryout are really saying, we need to reopen going into the Christmas season. So it'd be interesting to see if that is extended yet once again. Because if you remember last week during the press conference, the director of health, Gordon, did refer to basically he hinted, rather, you have to look between the lines, that they could possibly start to reopen the state or extend it like in stages, right? So maybe they'll go ahead and allow movie theaters to reopen with no concessions, but not restaurants, and because you can't wear a mask while you eat.
Yeah, it's still a lot of interesting gray area there that hasn't really been delved into by the state and by these industries together just yet, and it's definitely going to cause even more frustration than has already been out there, particularly with the restaurants who are curious why they have been shut down, but other industries that have similar nature to them haven't been so restricted. And so as this pause comes to an end, it's something that hopefully the state government and the health department have been in contact with the restaurant industry about how they can mitigate these issues and maybe allow some sort of in-person dining and in-person business to be done at these locations to help with these businesses who have been compliant throughout all of this pandemic without putting the public health at risk.
Tyler, so you talk about that, and I just happened to have my mask sitting here because I recorded or took some video and took some pictures. So my sister came up with this mask. I think it's brilliant, actually. So if you're talking about going to the movies or out to dinner with your friends, she has a mask, right? You wear your mask, but then you just peel it down and you can eat. So you can take a bite of your food or take a sip of your drink. Although, sorry, it's going over my earbuds, so it's messing up. And then you just Velcro it back up. It's kind of like magic.
It is. It's pretty magical, yes.
I will tell you, when she came up with this a while ago, and I was really surprised that she's been working on a design. And it's still kind of in the process, but I'm really surprised that other people haven't come up with this by now.
I've seen some similar style masks. I have, where there's been an opening over the mouth so that people can eat and can drink or can play instruments. The problem is, unlike this current model that you just showed us, there's no way to cover it back up. It's just wide open all the time, which defeats the entire purpose. So it's a nice cloth to keep your face warm, essentially, while you spread COVID-19 to all your friends and family.
Yeah, no, this Velcros back and forth. Plus, it keeps the nose protected the entire time. So the goal is,
it goes over the nose. The mask goes over the nose, if you haven't been informed just yet.
So, especially if you're in the movies, like, you can take a bite of popcorn, put it up, take it down, this, that, and the other. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of in the beginning stages, but she had a few of them made. I posted it on my social media, and her first round sold out like quickly. So people seem to want them. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Also, Tyler, by the way, we talked about this story quite a bit since it was first announced way back in September, and even had on the representative for the program. But the frontline workers to apply for free college program that the state started, the deadline is near December 31st. Clock is ticking. So for frontline workers who want to land a better job and increase their wages, it's last call. Time to do it now. Governor plans to remind essential workers on Tuesday that the deadline is December 31st to apply for Futures for Frontliners, the Michigan program offering free community college. Workers who earn a degree or skills certificate could get on a path for one of the most in-demand careers and earn double or triple the state's $9.65 minimum wage. They're really trying to push the trade industry right now as well. Over 100,000 people have applied since the program was first announced in September. And piggybacking off of the program, Eastern Michigan University and Henry Ford College also announced a partnership to pay for students to earn a 4-year degree. Futures for Frontliners is the nation's first for people who went to work to provide essential services while most people were hunkered down at home at the beginning of the pandemic. These are people, such as our truck drivers, grocery store workers, delivery drivers. So many people were still required to work to keep our world still operating in some type of capacity. This is actually modeled after the federal government's support of soldiers returning from World War II by providing educational opportunities. So 2021, for so many of these frontline workers, there are some certain requirements that these individuals and these workers do need to meet in order to qualify and take advantage of this. But if you could do that and improve your life in the meantime, 2021 could be looking up for so many of these people that helped keep our world rolling in those beginning stages of the pandemic, Tyler.
Yeah, they've absolutely earned an opportunity to improve their lives, to be educated without the financial burden that often comes with that education and that training in our society. And we'll expect to hear a lot more about that potentially this afternoon from the governor. She is going to speak in a press conference regarding COVID-19 and other information from around the state at 1:30 today. We'll cover that live here on Civic Center TV.
So with that, just a reminder, you can always catch the daily headlines, or if you want to try to find out more information instead of trying to Google and go to all these different websites, we try to make it easy for you. Just go to our website, civiccentertv.com, click on the coronavirus tab at the top of the page. Along with the daily headlines, we also have direct links to the CDC, the state of Michigan, Oakland County, who, by the way, we've been trying to get on someone from Oakland County to talk to us about the vaccine. We're continuing to try to make that happen for everyone out there. Hopefully we can get it today or tomorrow. But all the latest information, you can find that information right there on civiccentertv.com. Just click on the coronavirus tab. We also want to let you know that if you can't tune in to the full 2 hours of the show, or if you want to revisit one particular interview, you can find those there on civiccentertv.com, because Tyler and the entire team back at the studios each and every day, they do a lot of work to be able to cut down those clips so that you can go back and revisit those interviews as well. And we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. When we come back, a lot to get to over the next hour and 45 minutes. The first up, we are going to be joined with the manager for the Oakland County Workforce Development and Oakland County Michigan Works when the Oakland County Megacast continues.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now, it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
We want to say thank you for tuning into the Tuesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Tyler's back in the studios of Civic Center TV, holding down things back at the fort. But just as a reminder, Tyler and I are here 10 a.m. to noon, Monday through Friday. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham area municipal access. If you still have cable, do a little channel surfing. You'll find us on channel 15 on Comcast, channel 99 on AT&T. You can also tune us in to the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And we also want to say thank you to the Oakland University for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. But we want to start off the show today to talk a little bit more about how do you find a job during the middle of the pandemic? It can be a struggle for so many people that are finding themselves in the unemployment line, or also individuals just realizing that they want to do something different with their lives. So joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast is Jennifer Llewellyn. She's the manager for the Oakland County Workforce Development, Oakland County, Michigan Works. Great to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Ronnie and Tyler. It's great to be back.
With that, Jennifer, are you guys overwhelmed right now? Because it seems like we're going through these pauses, right? Where unemployment was skyrocketing, then it leveled off. But now with this latest pause, we're seeing the numbers go back up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been a whirlwind 9 months for our team. The peak in March and April, when the unemployment rate in Oakland County was about 19%, was pretty overwhelming for the staff. Since March, we've taken about 450,000 telephone calls with questions about unemployment insurance benefits. So, Michigan Works is a separate organization from the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency, but obviously there's a lot of questions and folks need a lot of support in that space. But with the recent pause, we've definitely seen an uptick in calls from workers that have questions about unemployment benefits, or people that are ready for something new and different. It's not uncommon with a new year coming that there's a New Year's resolution and people are gonna, find something new and different. I'm glad you mentioned Futures for Frontliners. So yeah, definitely a lot of ups and downs for the team this year.
I know the last time we talked to you, we had you on because you had an upcoming like recruiting event. But since then, I think things have changed for some of these employers now that those additional federal benefits have run out. What is the trend that you're seeing countywide right now?
Yeah, it's actually pretty fascinating. We had a virtual job fair on September 23rd, I think it was, and we sold out the employer spaces. We were only planning on a half-day event, but we had such demand from businesses that we ended up expanding it to a full-day event. We had over 600 job seekers that participated. And, there's still, despite the pandemic and despite the fact that there's, individuals that are being laid off, there's still a massive number of companies that are hiring, especially in, that warehousing and transportation, logistics, manufacturing, technology more than ever, right? Look at how much technology we're using in our daily lives. So, that occupational demand, when you pull this pandemic back and you pull COVID back, you still have this need for skilled labor and an educated workforce. And that's why I think, Futures for Frontliners, I can't encourage people enough to apply for that between now and December 31st. Sometimes when people think of essential workers, they're just thinking of the healthcare workers. But, if you worked in manufacturing during that time, if you worked in retail during that time, go ahead and apply for that program, because there's such a need for skilled and educated workers.
So can we talk a little bit about people that are applying for these jobs from an employer standpoint to hire people that are maybe needing to bridge the gap? Is it okay if it's obvious that you're going to be underemployed at that time?
Yeah, sometimes, I spent probably 18 years of my career working in a Michigan Works office and working directly with workers that had been unemployed or laid off or underemployed. And we all have the tendency to overanalyze that job description and say, okay, they're looking for these 20 things and I only have 18 of them, so I'm not going to apply for it. And, what I always encourage people to do is, obviously you want to be honest. You don't want to misrepresent your skill set that you have. But if you have most of the qualifications for that position, relay that and say, these are the qualifications that I do have. These are things that I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to pursue this certification, or I'm willing to go back to school. And, programs that we have through Michigan Works, Futures for Frontliners, those are designed to help with that gap. And so if you find yourself, missing some of the credentials or missing some of the skills, we have funding available through Oakland County Michigan Works that can help individuals go back to school and be upgraded in their current career, or even pursue a new career. So, it's hard not to get discouraged when you're like, well, I don't have all of those skills, but employers are oftentimes, especially in a competitive economy, are more willing to take individuals that have most of the skill sets rather than all of the skill sets.
So if I'm an employer and I need to fill a spot, will they consider someone that is overqualified for that job?
Well, I hope so.
Because the thought process is,
Yeah.
it does cost a company time and money to bring people in and to train them.
Absolutely.
So if they're probably not going to stick around, is it still better to fill it with someone than to leave it open and wait for someone?
Exactly. I mean, it's retention and turnover is very costly for companies. We actually just started a program last year, a business resource network program, where we deploy success coaches out to companies to meet with workers privately and confidentially to talk about any issues that might be interfering with their ability to keep the job. And so it's retention is becoming an increasing issue. One of the challenges on, overqualified oftentimes is financial. They'll assume that maybe the person, needs more money or wants more money. So, some companies are very willing to take that risk. Others are, it's definitely a balancing act for companies to make that decision if they're willing to consider overqualified candidates.
Jennifer Llewellyn with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She's the manager for the Oakland County Workforce Development, Oakland County Michigan Works. With that, what are the top jobs that are open right now in Oakland County?
So right now, huge demand in the warehousing and transportation, a significant demand for drivers. We had a meeting with Gardner White. They were, sharing that they had a need for drivers. Obviously Amazon, I think we're all getting those deliveries to our front door these days. So that's one of the top in-demand jobs. Several of the healthcare positions, so medical assistants, sterile processing technicians, CNAs, there continues to be a demand there. Obviously, there's some COVID-related positions as well. So the contact tracer types of positions and other supporting roles in the pandemic, and IT positions across the board, from help desk, all the way to high-level programmer positions. So, it's I mentioned earlier, you peel back that pandemic, and you still have the need for an educated and skilled and qualified workforce.
So going forward, there is hope on the horizon with the first of the vaccine, but what jobs do you think are going to stick around post-pandemic? Because if you were unemployed from an industry, I think you're gun shy going forward. So which ones do you think are going to have lasting effects and are going to need people?
Yeah, that's fascinating, because just in my own personal circle, I've heard from teachers and nurses that have said, like, this is not what I signed up for. And, that worries me, that, we're going to lose some educators, that we're going to lose nurses, which are, top in demand occupations. Are we going to lose healthcare workers? And those are really essential to, to lives of our children, lives of our family members. The demand for registered nurses has been pretty high for quite a while in Oakland County. Same with software developers. That demand has been pretty high for quite a few years. We anticipate that. We anticipate the demand for truck drivers to continue, and then skilled trades, the plumbers and the electricians and the millwrights. And we've been working really hard the last few years with manufacturing day and increased work in the apprenticeship space, working with our labor organizations to get more skilled trade folks into the pipeline. So I guess in our four major areas of focus are advanced manufacturing, healthcare, IT, and construction. And we really see those trends continuing into the future.
Yeah, IT, I think everyone has learned during this pandemic, they're some of the real heroes.
Absolutely.
During all of this. And typically a lot of companies only hire like maybe one or two people. I used to work for a federal government, and if you had to call the help desk, we used to call it the helpless desk.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was like, it just crazy, the need in the IT industry. But so many of the jobs that you're also talking about are jobs that require training.
Yes.
They're not jobs that anyone who has just been laid off and needs to pay their rent next month can walk into.
Sure. Many of the positions do require a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, but some of the positions, you can earn a certification. And, that's why it's important to engage with Michigan Works as soon as possible. I know oftentimes, you get laid off and you're like, oh, I'll find something new. And then before you know it, your 26 weeks of unemployment benefits is over and you haven't found a position yet. So, we encourage people to connect with us right after they're laid off, sit down with one of our career advisors. Let's explore training programs. Let's look at the skill sets and interests and abilities that you have. And is there a short-term credential out there that someone can pursue to make themselves more marketable? We launched 2 years ago a program in partnership with Oakland Community College to train PLC and robotics technicians. We know that's a huge demand area now and into the future. If you look at these Amazon facilities, it's all robotics and automation. And, that's a short-term training program. It's about a 15-week training program. We cover the cost of tuition. We're recruiting for another cohort of students in 2021. So, just important to connect as soon as possible. Some of the IT positions in particular, you can land with a certification and then work towards that 2-year degree and 4-year degree.
Jennifer, do you think we did ourselves a disservice because for years there has been such a push for our kids to go to 4-year colleges, and the trade industry, it kind of got left behind, but the need seems to be so great in the trade industry, but they're very, it's not just like picking up a wrench. There is a lot of skill that goes in to some of these trade industry jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because now I almost feel like the pendulum is swinging too far the other way. So, part of my message is we need to educate young people about all of their opportunities. So that is, apprenticeships, that is short-term training, certifications, 2-year degrees and 4-year degrees. In Oakland County in particular, a lot of the, research and design positions, a lot of the knowledge-based economy positions do require a 4-year degree. So we have to be careful. We let that pendulum swing too far one way, that everybody needed to go to the university and get a 4-year degree. Now we're hearing young people say, well, I heard that I don't have to go and get a 4-year degree. And it's like, well, no, we don't want that either. Let's keep it in the middle. What about military options? What about 2-year associate's degree programs, and truck driving is a CDL, and we really talk a lot about stackable credentials and a career pathway. So if you're intimidated, you're saying, well, I'm not really ready for a 4-year program, I don't want to be a nurse right now, I don't think I can do that. We'll start with a medical assistant, and then let's look at an LPN, and then let's look at an RN. Same thing with manufacturing. You can start with the robotics and PLC technician program, and then maybe enroll at Oakland Community College in their, manufacturing and industry technology program, and then look at a bachelor's degree in engineering. So, we're really trying to message around, stepping stones and pathways so that people can take bite-sized pieces, I guess, for lack of a better term.
No, it's a good analogy. And with that too, what about so many of these students and college students that are remote learning who are saying, forget it, I'm going to take a gap year?
Yeah.
Your advice.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about that. Oakland County, we set a goal. County Executive Coulter announced at his State of the County our Oakland 80 goal. And our goal is to have 80% of Oakland County's population have an industry recognized credential or higher by 2030. So we've got 10 years to pull this off. Right now we're at about 70%. And so 10% doesn't seem like much, but it sure is. And so, how do we get more young people to enroll in post-secondary education, but also stay in and complete? We have a lot of starters, but we struggle on the completion rate at some of the colleges and universities. So, how do we keep them in successfully? Also, how do we get to those folks that have some credits but no degree? So maybe, the 30, 40, 50 somethings that started their college education but didn't complete. And then obviously, how do we get more folks that need a high school diploma or GED, both young people and adults? How do we help them achieve that goal? So, it's, I hope that the young people will stick with it. I have a high school senior and an 8th grader. My senior is doing a hybrid. He has 3 classes in person at the high school and 3 online. My daughter at middle school, thank goodness, is in person. We're all grateful for that. But, the online learning is definitely different, and everyone's not cut out for it. But I hope, if there's one message, is, find a training program out there that is a match for you, for your skill sets, for your passion, some type of education. It aligns with, earning potential and, long-term career success with each credential, degree, certificate that you earn.
Just another minute or two with you here on the Oakland County Megacast. And so many people are going through these changes during the pandemic. And with that, I always tell people, any job you can take where you're learning something new is good, because at least you're learning something. But for people who have gaps in their resume, what do you advise to them?
Well, first of all, sometimes a resume format will help. If you've got gaps in your work history, if there's a format that doesn't, show that in a glaring way, I might want to go with more of a functional resume rather than a chronological resume. So I always recommend that. 2, what did you do during that time? Did you do volunteer work during that gap? Were you raising children during that time? Were you caring for a loved one during that time? Acknowledge that, recognize that. employers and HR people, they're humans too. We've all been in that space where we've had to have that gap, and we expect some of that now. We know workers have had to walk away because they've got kids at home that are online learning, or maybe they have health issues that are preventing them to work during the pandemic. You know, it's very important to just be honest and transparent in that part of the hiring process. But, you know, I encourage people to be creative. You know, you've seen people, you know, list their functions as a caregiver for a family member on a resume and say, you know, I was caring for my father during that time. And to find other things that you can do. Can you enroll in an online class to keep your skills current? You know, can you volunteer a few hours a week to stay within your industry? Can you belong to an association? Maybe you can chair a committee or something during that time so that you're keeping your skills and your knowledge fresh and relevant.
Jennifer, Llewellyn, anything that maybe we didn't touch on that you want to add before we let you go?
No, I was just, you know, encourage, I mentioned before, we've got, you know, our 6 Oakland County Michigan Works locations that are all delivering services virtually at this time. We have a list of virtual workshops that are available on our website. There's no cost for those. We'll be continuing those through March of next year. So if people need help with resume writing or cover letters, or how to create a LinkedIn profile for themselves, or just navigating the job search process, which can be pretty intimidating, and I hope that they'll register for one of our workshops, and they can also schedule a virtual appointment with a career advisor for one-on-one personal assistance.
You know, and since you mentioned it with LinkedIn, I know how important is it. I will say I'm so overwhelmed with so many different social media platforms, because I don't feel like I can go on Hootsuite and use what I post on Facebook for my Instagram versus my Twitter, because I think all the platforms are so different. Absolutely. But how important is it to have a LinkedIn profile? And if you have a LinkedIn profile, do you need to post all the time on it?
It's, you know, LinkedIn right now, from what we're hearing from our job seekers, that's the place where they're getting some of the most activity. So, you know, if you're looking for a position, it's important to be on there, to indicate that you're looking for something, to connect with your network. You know, 68% of people find their next job through their network. And so LinkedIn provides that opportunity to stay connected to that network. It is important to do some engagement on there. You know, if you just put a profile up and you're not engaged at all, you're not going to have that same level of success. And so I'm not saying you've got to go on there every single day, but, you know, definitely reaching out to the network, you know, using it, and like you said, you know, I use my Twitter more on a professional basis. I use my Facebook on more of a personal side. And so, you know, it is definitely demanding when you've got all of these different platforms to manage. But LinkedIn is, I think, one of the top suggestions right now to keep that professional network connected, and be able to, you know, pick up a phone or shoot them a message or text them and say, hey, you know, I'm looking for work. Do you have any suggestions or ideas or opportunities for me?
Well, thank you so much for being with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. You are always a wealth of knowledge, and important knowledge for our audience. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ronnie. It's great to see all of you, and hopefully I can come back soon in the future.
Most definitely. Happy holidays to you and your team as well.
Likewise. Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. My apologies to our next guest. We're running a little bit long, but when we come back, Dr. David Schwartz will be with us here on the Megacast. He's a psychologist and director of OU Counseling Center over at Oakland University. So we're going to take a quick break, and then the Oakland County Megacast will be right back.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Caldoun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
We want to say thank you for tuning in to the Tuesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl. Here in my home studios, Mr. Tyler Keefe is really our superhero, not just a co-host, but really behind the scenes, because he makes everything operate and stay on the rails here at Civic Center TV. And we want to say thank you to him. As we continue the show, Oakland University is our Facebook partner of the day. They are allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page. And we want to say thank you to them for allowing us to do so, because we are trying to reach as many people as possible. And that includes the Oakland University community. And joining us now on the Megacast is Dr. David Schwartz. He's the psychologist and director of OU Counseling Center there at the university. Doctor, thank you again for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
It's been a while since we have a touch base with you. And I think before students were back in class to some degree, you're remote again. How are things going over there at the university?
You know, it's for obvious reasons. I think it's been a very challenging year for particularly the students, but also the staff working at the university. And just like we talked about several months ago when we met, it's, one day to the next, 1 week to the next, things have been changing. And, one of my philosophies I've been preaching with my staff all year is we need to be adaptable, flexible. I've been telling them we need to be like water and take it as it comes. So, yep, right now we are again fully remote, and probably will be that way for a while, I'm guessing. So,
when you have to be remote, is it harder to reach some of those students or easier?
That's a good question. I mean, in some ways it can be more challenging. I think one of the things is a lot of younger students now, they don't use voicemail quite as much. So they'll either not have it set up or it's full. But certainly with email, we have other ways of reaching them. In many ways, I was joking the other day, I think me and my staff have actually been far more responsive this year because we have more technology involved. So we have all of our office phones that are still active, and they all come right to our computer. So when I get a phone call, I get it on my computer. If I get a voicemail, I get an alert right away in my email. And so in many ways, we're actually able to connect with students much more quickly, but it can be challenging getting a hold of students because schedules are different. And, with basically relying mostly on email and voicemails, that can be challenging at times.
Yeah, and so many students too, if they're remote, they're not necessarily there. They're back wherever they live, and that can be not in Michigan.
Yes, yeah, and schedules are very different. Obviously there's a lot of synchronous classes, but there's some async classes too, and a lot of our students are more night owls, so they tend to have more later schedules right now. So that can be challenging as well as just working around the different adaptations we've had to make in our schedule.
So can we talk a little bit about what are some of the top issues that you're seeing with your students right now?
I would say that, the two top issues are actually the same top issues that us and other counseling centers across the country have seen for years, with the number one being anxiety and number two being depression. But obviously there's differences. I think while we are seeing quite a bit of each of those, we're also seeing, I think, a higher degree of severity in students coming with much more severe anxiety or depression. Loneliness is another big one, feeling disconnected. A lot of struggles with just the adapting to the new format of going to school, dealing with disappointment and, what expectations they had. If you're an incoming freshman, you have certain expectations of what college is going to be like, and it hasn't been like that this year. And on the flip side, if you're an outgoing senior who's graduating, that also looks very differently. So, just challenging differences in expectations and certainly quite a bit of struggles with the, switching to remote learning. There are some students that actually do really well with that, but I would guess that the vast majority struggle, because one thing we've learned over the past 9 months is that everything takes longer when you're doing it remotely. You have to factor in more time to, even just getting, contacting other students or us or other professors. There's a little bit more work involved. Doing the work takes longer. And on top of everything, like we talked about several months ago, is everybody's baseline anxiety is still significantly higher. And when we are trying to operate under those very stressful conditions, we tend to we forget things more easily, or we're not as organized, and our schedule gets a little bit more blurred, and our boundaries between work and home life get blurred. And all of those things, among many more, have been some big challenges this year.
Yeah, so it's not even so much about the students, but the staff and the professors as well, because it's not so easy right now to put your life in these boxes and move from, situation to situation, because as you mentioned, they're blending into one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first, I'm really incredibly proud of the staff across OU, because I think in just a short period of time, like within the counseling center, within really a matter of a week, we moved our clinic to a new location. Then a week later, moved it completely online. And I think there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of this, but I think there's going to be a lot more staff and professors and other professionals who are much more feeling at ease with technology and being more accessible to students in new ways. I think that'll be a positive that comes out of this. But yeah, that blurring of boundaries from home to work is difficult. One of the recommendations when I do different trainings with staff is to, if you have the ability to have a separate space for your office, like my office that I'm in right now, this room is only used for work. I don't use it for anything else other than work. And so I know when I leave this room and close that door, the work day is over. And setting boundaries like that, even if they seem kind of silly on the surface, they really do work. Even with dressing, I tell people dress like you would go to work normally too. And then at the end of the day, change into your comfortable clothes. Obviously there's some wiggle room with that, because there are advantages of working from home. It's a little bit more comfortable. But all the little things we can do to kind of establish those boundaries really help protect us from having our work bleed too much into our home life.
That's great advice for everyone out there. It doesn't matter if you work in a college setting, an office setting, or any setting. If you are working remotely, it's just that. Try to have that place that is your workplace, and when you leave it, you leave it.
Yes.
With that, with the students, there are some students that it's been a confusing time, I think, for them, especially during the holidays. If they're on campus, even if they're remote learning and they're still living on campus or off-campus apartments, they're being told, go home, don't go home, stay home, get tested, don't get tested. It's so confusing for them. And then you're throwing in the holidays on top of that.
Yes.
What are you seeing and what are you dealing with right now?
Well, yeah, I think this time of year is a tough time of year for a lot of people, right? The holiday blues it's a real phenomenon. It's something that actually happens. And then you throw into that mix of pandemic, and just a little bit ago, a very contentious election and the social justice issues that have been brought to the forefront. It's been a very stressful time for students. And that can be a really big challenge, I think, to deal with all of that. And on top of that, the normal experience of that down sometimes we feel during the holidays. For a lot of people, holidays are a celebratory time where people are gathering together with families, something to look forward to. But there's also a lot of people out there, it's more of a mixed bag, right? Because it's a reminder of the people that aren't with us, that maybe were with us at previous holidays. And certainly this year, more than any other year in my lifetime, there's going to be more of that. There's more losses, loss of life, loss of jobs, loss of financial security, all of the losses, all the way down to just the loss of our normal routines in everyday life. all of those big changes can exacerbate, those feelings. I read a statistic that 64% of people who identify of having some type of mental health or mental illness problem report that during the holidays, those issues become significantly worse. Now, that was pre-pandemic. So you add in pandemic to that, I can only imagine it's just going to be that much more of a negative impact on people. And it's not that they aren't things we can do, and there's certainly some hopeful things and some tips that we can give you with that. But I think, this holiday, we just have to be honest. This set of holidays is not going to be like any holiday season any of us experienced before. And I think on one level, we have to accept that, but we also have to adapt and find creative ways of making it something that could still be something where we're connecting with other people and feeling that holiday spirit, so to speak.
Dr. David Schwartz with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's a psychologist and the director for the Oakland University Counseling Center. And with that, Dr. What advice do you have to parents if their college student right now is saying, maybe I need a gap year?
Yeah, that's a tough decision, because I think it's all going to depend on the context, because there's some situations where that might be the best decision. If I've known students who were going into their senior year and they were planning on taking a gap year before they go to graduate school, for example. And maybe for that student, it makes sense to do the gap year first and then go straight to graduate school. I think the downside of the gap year is that typically when we think of gap years, at least historically speaking, it's a year to grow as a human being, whether it be taking, traveling the world or doing an internship or volunteer work. And we're obviously much more limited in what we can do in those gap years. So I caution people to really, if they are thinking about taking a gap year, to really come up with a solid plan of what they're going to be doing that year, what they can be doing for their own self-growth and improvement, their emotional well-being, the professional growth and academic growth as a student. But it's certainly something I think a lot of families have been discussing. And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I think for each individual, depending on their context and their situation, they're going to have to figure out what's going to work best for them.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills, here on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. David Schwartz with us over at Oakland University. Before we let you go, Doctor, any great advice for any of us, or we try to hopefully leave interviews on a positive note?
Yes.
Anything positive out of this pandemic you think you and your team, or for the students as well?
Absolutely. I think, just a quick tips I would give is, I think like any time of high stress, make sure you're checking in with yourself, make sure that you're monitoring your moods, and practicing self-care. So that is critical, right? And that could be trying to stick with a regular routine. That's a type of self-care. That could be connecting with family and loved ones, or other people that you can talk with. It might look different this year, and we might have to be very creative in how we connect, but there's still ways to bring that togetherness together, that feeling of togetherness from this season. I think, it'll look differently, but we have to accept that there's going to be differences. I think one of the things I've been preaching a lot, I do anytime during the year, but especially now, is practicing gratitude. And I know that gets said a lot, but I think, this is the time of the season where we tend to focus on what we're grateful for. And this year's going to be a challenge. And for some of us more than others, there's going to be some really hard, difficult ways to try and look for those things we're grateful for. One thing I preach to my clients is that practicing something I call the Bookend Technique. And that's where the first thing you do in the morning, I want you to write down 3 things that you're looking forward to about the day. And at the end of the night, last thing you do before you go to bed, write down 3 things that you are happy about or grateful about the day. And I don't care how awful your day is, you can always find 3 things, even if they're small things. Even if one of the things is, I'm happy the day is finally over, I made it through it. That's still something to be grateful for. And, I think we can find those things, and it's not trying to, make something, spin this in a positive way, because we know this is difficult, but there's always little positive things we can be grateful for and happy about. And then most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are, whether it be a trusted friend or loved one, or your doctor or your therapist, or if you don't have a therapist, one of the positives that's come out of this is that there's a whole industry of psychologists and social workers and counselors that have now been able to shift to work virtually. So we're far more accessible than we've ever been before. There are lots of people out there still taking new clients. don't be afraid to reach out for help, especially if the holidays are feeling overwhelming for you. Use crisis lines if you need to. Those are available on our website. If you're a part of the OU community, don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. But most important, know what the resources are out there for you. Know that you're not alone, and know that it's okay to not be okay. You know, we don't have to pretend like everything's normal and everything's fine. We're all feeling that way where it's not okay. And sometimes we have to say, you know what, that's okay too.
One of the good things I hope that definitely comes out of this pandemic is allowing people to be comfortable to talk about their mental health. It
Yes.
does not need to be this veil of secrecy that we hold within ourselves. It is something to be discussed, just like if you had a cancer diagnosis or some other health issue, our mental health is just as important as well.
Absolutely. And that's one of the nice things working at a college, because in my time at OU, I've noticed that the attitudes have changed, and we still got a long way to go, but students now are much less likely to kind of shy away from seeing me if they see me on campus. They'll come up and say hi, and the stigma has been reduced with the younger generations, and that's such a really pleasant thing and very positive thing to see. And I really hope that continues to move in that direction.
We all do as well. Dr. David Schwartz with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for being with us. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the second hour. And continuing, our next guest coming up here on the Oakland County Megacast is going to be Dr. Laura Lamb, as she is with Beaumont Health. And that is the conversation just after the break. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
We want to welcome you back to the second hour of the Oakland County Megacast. As a reminder, you can catch Tyler and I Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, tune us in, Channel 15 Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. And you can also catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, The Biff. And today we are also lucky enough to be able to live stream today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on the Oakland University Facebook page. And that's what makes us the Oakland County Megacast, because we are pretty much on every format that you could imagine. And it's important for us to be able to bring you all of these interviews in a long interview format, so that you can get the information directly from the individuals themselves. And kicking off the 11 o'clock hour, Dr. Laura Lamb joins us on the Oakland County Megacast. She's with Beaumont Health, the Director of Translational Urology Research. But how does your research relate to COVID-19 and the pandemic that we are going through right now?
That's a great question. So early in the pandemic, we were able to take some of the methods we used for diagnosing benign urology conditions and apply them for diagnosing COVID in a rapid fashion. So that was, I've actually been on the show previously and kind of talked about that research, but recently we're shifting our research to kind of mash more with our department and really try to understand the full impact of COVID on the total body. And part of that is actually on bladder function. And so we're starting to appreciate that a lot of patients don't always have classical symptoms. So they might present with fever, they might have the dry cough and the heart and the mental fatigue and some of these other symptoms. And some of them might also have symptoms you wouldn't expect. So in this case, we're talking about people that have to use the bathroom more frequently. When they feel like they have to go to the bathroom, they have that sudden gotta go urge. So they feel like they can't wait 5-10 minutes to go to the bathroom. And a lot of patients are complaining of nocturia, which is getting up multiple times during the night to have to use the bathroom. And sometimes these symptoms can be really bothersome. They can interfere with a patient's ability to rest and recover. Sometimes they're painful or they feel a lot of pressure associated with their bladder. And so if you're already maybe have that fatigue or that difficulty crossing the room because you get the shortness of breath, and all of a sudden you add on to that, you feel like you're going to go to the bathroom and wet yourself. This can be really bothersome and stressful to a patient. And so we're trying to really understand what's causing those symptoms and what we can do to help patients so they can focus on their rest and recovery.
So as being a member, a part of the medical team, looking into these things is such a new virus and a new medical mystery. How do you approach it?
Yeah, so I'm really, really fortunate to work with some fantastic colleagues across departments. We routinely interact with infectious disease and pulmonary, as well as people that are involved all across the clinical care spectrum. And because we not only interact with them on maybe this particular subject, but we also interact with them across different committees and stuff like that. When something important comes up and we have an idea, I can send off a quick email or a text to one of those clinical team members and get their feedback on, do they think this is something that might be happening? Do they see this? What do they see in the clinic? Maybe that's something that I can also provide insight on from my expertise. And because we have these wonderful relationships across departments, and across the clinical and scientific expertise, we can really help bring innovation and speed to bringing unmet needs in the medical field to the forefront.
Hope is on the horizon. Yesterday, obviously, with the news of the vaccine, and healthcare workers are on the front line right now here in the state of Michigan receiving that vaccine. Do you want to share your feelings about the vaccine? And the impact that it has on the hospital system?
I'm really excited that there's a vaccine and that our people that are at most risk for contacting COVID, the people that are on the front line taking care of the patients, are the first people in line to receive that vaccine. But in terms of any additional questions, I think that would be best served by my colleagues in infectious disease.
So with that, I know that you've also been working on the COVID-19 test, a rapid test. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate back in February to develop a rapid test. And so what we're doing now is we've submitted grants, which are requests to the federal government for financial support to bring that to patients. So we submitted a grant back in September. And we should be hearing back probably at the latest in February on whether or not it will be funded. So cross our fingers that this gets funded.
Hopefully, because testing has been such a huge part of this entire process. And while focus has shifted to the vaccine, testing is still the first line.
It's not going to go away. Yes, we're going to need testing.
And so with that, what do you see the future of this? Because is this going to be something that we're already seeing some of these home tests come on the market? So is this going to be something like like a pregnancy test, right? You pee on a stick or whatever, and you get your results. And I'm a chick, so of course we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But that kind of testing, could that be where this rapid test goes, where you get those quick results?
Yeah, so ideally not only our team, but other teams as well are working towards easy to use, simple tests, like you said, a pregnancy test, maybe not pee on a stick, but something similar, that you could do easily in your own home. Now, there are some challenges there because a lot of the times these type of medical tests, to have the sensitivity and specificity that we want to see, do require some training or background in terms of how to handle samples. So trying to simplify that process has its own unique challenges, but we do have confidence in the public that they can, step up to the plate and learn things if needed. So there's many people that are working on this. There's many brilliant people. And so hopefully at one point we will have some type of at-home test that has the sensitivity and accuracy that we're all hoping for.
Yeah, I think accuracy has been the big thing when it comes to the testing. And so if it comes to the point where we're starting to see where some organizations or even Ticketmaster and these are saying, hey, you're going to have a negative test in order to attend an event, or airlines right now, you're going to have a negative test. So we're going to be, send you a test or do this and that and the other. Is this going to be a part of our future, do you think?
Yeah, any type of test that we can do rapidly, but is also sensitive. We can't compromise on the sensitivity if we want to keep exposure risks low. But yeah, if we want to make it so people feel comfortable traveling again, which I know I'm personally looking forward to, or attend large events, having a negative test, if that's what's being required, these type of methodologies will definitely be part of that solution. And I think everybody's looking forward to that.
Dr. Laura Lamb with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. She's with Beaumont Health. And looking at the testing, I think even with the vaccine, testing is going to continue to be one of the key components of this. How do you get up each and every day and approach this problem? What is in your mindset in layman's terms for us that are not in the medical field?
No, I think it's very similar to anyone that's working on during this pandemic. We're just going to give it our best every day, and we're really seeing the best in people. I mean, the amount of resources that have come together from the larger medical and scientific communities, the amount of collaborations that have been going on, people just freely sharing their knowledge. They're not holding it back. I mean, this has been so important, and this is why we've been able to make such progress, not only in necessarily testing, but the fact that we now have such better treatments, and we know how to treat people better. We know how to, the vaccine story. I mean, all this is because there's incredibly dedicated people that are really passionate about what they do, and they're freely collaborating across disciplines. It has been a miracle. This has been a moment in scientific and medical research where we've come together as the global community. And I'm so proud of the global medical and scientific community for what they've been able to do in such a short time and not compromise on our standards. It's really amazing.
Do you think outside of a pandemic, a global pandemic, you would ever see this? I mean, really, what was the conversation like before? No, we know this. No, it's my information. No, I'm not going to share it. And now, for everyone to be coming together, it's collective minds being a part of this solution.
Yes, it's kind of crazy because you see things happening in real time in terms of the scientific and medical field, which has led to some confusion on the public side, and it's totally understandable. But it's part of the scientific process. Is that, one day we think one thing and then new evidence emerges. And if it's stronger evidence, if it's better evidence, if it's better data, that's going to change our minds and we're going to switch directions. So seeing that play out in real time is just the way that science and medicine, they call it practicing medicine for a reason, works. But seeing this all happen is really encouraging. And we're hoping that, these type of trends continue past this pandemic.
Yeah, and thinking about that, because, cancer is a global issue. There are so many health issues that impact us globally. So do you think coming out of this pandemic, this could spill over to help try
Yeah.
to solve
And-
some of these other medical mysteries as well.
Yeah, so I actually worked in the cancer field for many, many years, and it's an incredibly complex disease, which is why it's so hard for us to make progress in. But we do make progress, I will say that. Before the pandemic, people did work together. I will say that, but it has been astounding how many resources became available during this pandemic. So I don't want to give the impression that people didn't work together beforehand. That's certainly not true. But especially the cross-disciplinary work has been remarkable. And also just, I think everybody's experienced these shifts in like working from home or even like these virtual conferences. And, early in the pandemic, they just canceled a lot of the scientific conferences that we traditionally have, and now they're moving to these all virtual formats. And so, next month, I'm giving a talk in Germany and Ireland, and I don't have to leave my office. So, and I get to hear those world experts too, and their thoughts and their ideas and their data. And so, because of all these things happening, we're really able to accelerate, our innovation and new discoveries.
So with that, again, going back to kind of the testing that you are working on, time frame? That this could be, do you have a time frame that this could be available to the public? Because we want everything yesterday.
I know, and I feel that way too. However, it's hard because there's a lot of different things that I personally don't have control over that play into that. So we'll see. Keep our fingers crossed.
So before we let you go, Dr. Lamb, do you also want to touch on the issue of back in the beginning when this all started, we had so many people that didn't want to go to the hospital because they were afraid to go to the hospital due to COVID. And so they were letting their own health issues go to the wayside because they were too afraid to go to the hospital. Are you seeing that during this second surge at all?
I think that anytime we see the news lines that are out there in terms of COVID or even during the regular flu season, to be quite honest, it is scary. And I really want people to be aware that Beaumont, as well as the other health systems, are really taking care to make sure it's safe to come in for your routine care. So people shouldn't be delaying their routine care. They shouldn't be delaying any tests that they need to be done. We have fantastic staff and precautions in place, and our environmental services team is world class. So, don't be afraid to come in and get your non-COVID cares taken care of. Those are important. They're important to your health, and people deserve to take care of themselves. So I would encourage people to still get their routine care.
Very much. So Dr. Laura Lamb, thank you so much for your time. We know you're a busy person, and we wish you the best of luck on your research and the grant as well.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here today. Happy holidays.
You too. Happy holidays to you and your team as well. Dr. Laura Lamb, she's the Director of Translational Urology Research over at Beaumont Health. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. Still a lot to talk about. And because we're the Megacast, we are kind of all over the spectrum. Our next guest is going to be with the Michigan Farm Bureau because this crisis continues to impact our economy in great ways. So we are going to get an update from the Farm Bureau when the Oakland County Megacast continues.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
Or blue. But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful, michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
We want to say thank you for spending a little bit of your Tuesday here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. For those that may not know, this show actually grew out of the pandemic. Way back in March, Tyler and Dave Scott started this show as a way to try to bring information to the public in a long interview format regarding all things related to the COVID-19 crisis. I'm sure when they started it back in March, they never anticipated that it was going to still be going on all these months later. But here we are in December, the middle of December, and COVID-19, while hope is on the horizon with a vaccine, it is still going to be a long time before we get back to life as we used to know it. And that includes our economy. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast, we are glad to bring in again Ernie Birchmeyer. He's with the Michigan Farm Bureau. Thank you for being with us here on the Megacast.
Good morning. It's great to be with you and your viewers and listeners this morning.
What has this roller coaster been like for the individuals in the farm industry here in the state of Michigan?
Sure. I like to remind people that our farmers were farming before the COVID-19 pandemic. They farmed through it, and they will be farming after it. And that's one of the great things about our industry. We're very resilient, but the crops have to be planted and harvested. The livestock need to be taken care of. We have a vibrant dairy industry in Michigan. The cows need to be milked every day. That doesn't stop. So those things continue to happen on a daily basis. We're very fortunate in Michigan in that we have a very diverse agriculture industry. We're second in the number of commodities produced in our state, second only to California, in the United States, everything from fruit and vegetables to dairy and livestock and row crops and virtually everything in between, with the exception of maybe citrus. So an extremely diverse agriculture industry. And our farmers have worked diligently, every day through the pandemic to make sure that, we have a safe, wholesome, affordable food supply for our consumers here in Michigan, across the United States, and really throughout the world.
People don't understand, I think, the impact that the farm industry has on the state of Michigan and our economy. And I don't know if you actually cover the Christmas tree farmers as well. I was talking to one here in my neighborhood, and the good thing for them, sales have been booming this year.
Sales have been booming this year. Folks, think about Christmas trees virtually once a year when they go to get one, for their home or, for their family around Christmas time. And Christmas tree production actually takes, it's a 7 to 10 year process from the time a seedling is put in the ground until that tree is ready to harvest and made available for a family to take home and decorate their house with. So, those decisions are long-term decisions that take time. Those trees are cared for on an annual basis to make sure that they have the right shape and, and they're cared for properly so that our homeowners and citizens across the state have a great tree. And we ship a lot of Christmas trees from Michigan throughout the country as well. So Michigan is is a leader in Christmas tree production. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen an uptick in the number of people across Michigan that have wanted to go out and take advantage of those opportunities to buy, agricultural products, whether it be from a farm market or at Christmas time here, poinsettias, wreaths, Christmas trees, just get out and do something with the family. So it's been a fantastic year for our Christmas tree folks.
That's kind of like the bright star in this economic craziness, right?
It has been. We've had some challenges throughout the year, as everyone has, with shutdowns and executive orders that have challenged our industry, especially the farm market industry. We go back to the springtime, the greenhouse and nursery industry. We found a way to work with our leaders to work through that process and make sure that not only do our farms have the opportunity to market those products and keep their businesses open, but our consumers in Michigan have an opportunity to go out and purchase those as well. So it's not been easy, but we've worked collaboratively, and collaboration has been critically important throughout this pandemic, whether you're in agriculture, or I enjoyed listening to your previous speaker, in the medical community and the collaboration that has happened there as well. We all need to continue to work together to find a way to get through this.
That is for sure. But Ernie, I also wonder, what does it mean to the farm industry when, if there is a new, not executive order, a new health order that comes down that puts so many restaurants on pause? What does that mean to the members on your side of this issue and their supply chain?
Sure, that was a critical issue back in March and April when the pandemic first hit. A lot of people don't realize that prior to the pandemic, over 50% of the meals consumed in this country were consumed outside of the household. So restaurants, food service establishments. You think about the number of people at universities, the number of people that eat lunch at school when school was in session, or even sporting events. And our food processing industry kind of came to a screeching halt, so to speak, when dealing with the processing to make sure that we shifted immediately from the restaurant and food service industry, where 50% of the meals were consumed, to everything virtually being consumed in the household. That's why we saw some empty grocery store shelves back in the springtime, because our processing industry had to keep up. At the same time, when we talk about processing, our livestock industry, there were COVID outbreaks within the processing industry there. And at one point in time, over 50% of our meat processing industry was shut down because of COVID outbreaks. We've worked through that process. We've worked through those challenges. But when those processing industries are shut down, that then backs up livestock on farm operations. The farmers have to feed and care for that livestock longer, and it does cause challenges and costs additional dollars to house those animals longer. So we have dealt with that because, as I said earlier, agriculture is a 365-day-a-year job. It doesn't shut off, and it can't shut off, especially on our livestock and dairy industries, because those animals are there and need to be cared for and fed every day. And then we need to make sure that we have a place to go for processing. We became very comfortable and very familiar with a just-in-time food service industry in this country. And when you have a link in the chain that breaks, things kind of come to a screeching halt. So we did deal with some challenges there.
So what's it been like after that first hill in this pandemic roller coaster? You came down, things smoothed out. What's been the support and the response from the government?
Sure. We've been fortunate, and we appreciate the Trump administration working with agriculture to make sure that there was some financial support for our farmers who lost market share, who lost income because of reduced prices due to the processing shutdown and closures. So that was very much appreciated. Along with that, the payment protection program was beneficial to agriculture, as it was to many businesses and industries throughout the country. Agriculture was able to utilize that program, making sure that PPE, personal protection equipment, was available for our industry, not only on the farm, but in the processing industry as well. So we've all worked and learned, and the beauty of this is we've worked through it is that when challenges arose, people listened. And that's part of the collaboration that I talked about earlier. If there's a challenge, the most important thing we can do is listen to what that challenge is and then work together to figure out how to resolve that problem so that we can all get through this. You know, we've never dealt with anything like this before. Sure, there were pandemics in the past, but for our generations and our citizens now, this is something brand new, and we've all had to learn to deal with the challenges that we've been presented with.
Quite the challenges for your industry, but I think one thing during this crisis, it did highlight the steps that goes from getting food from the farm to the grocery store and to your family table or to the restaurants as well. So do you think people are kind of more aware right now of where their food comes from?
I think they are. And, consumer awareness has always been a critical issue for agriculture. We spend a lot of time with the Michigan Farm Bureau trying to educate our consumers where their food comes from. 99% of the population does not live on a farm. Our farms are run by about 1% of our population, not only here in Michigan, but across the country. So you've got 1% feeding 100%, and it's just the way our industries are. So back in the spring, when the store shelves, were a bit more empty than what people were used to, people did become more concerned and had a greater understanding and realization for where their food came from. We have a number of small processing facilities across Michigan, meat processing facilities, and they are booked solid with business throughout 2021. They were booked solid through 2020, and most of them are booked solid with business through 2021 because people want to make sure that they have food for their families. A lot of people want to know where their food comes from, and this has been a great chance for many consumers to connect with a local farmer to learn more about our food system. I always tell people that we're very fortunate in our country to have choices. Whether you want to buy directly from a farmer, whether you want to go to a smaller supermarket, whether you want to buy local or organic, or you just want to go to a Meijer or a Kroger or a Walmart and buy your groceries, isn't it great that we have those choices? We have consumers that want different choices. We have farmers that are willing to meet that demand. And when they all come together, the marketplace works great.
Ernie Birchmeyer here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's with the Michigan Farm Bureau, a very important organization here in the state of Michigan. And with that, Ernie, during this crazy time of the COVID-19 crisis, so many industries are struggling with employees. How are the farms doing with getting enough employees during this COVID-19 outbreaks?
Well, labor is always an important issue in agriculture. Many of our crops, especially our specialty crops, fruits and vegetables, are hand harvested, so labor is critically important there. We have a program at Michigan Farm Bureau that brings in guest workers into the country to help with those farms, and when they're done with those jobs, they return back to their home country. So labor is critically important there. Labor is important in our livestock and dairy operations as well. It takes people to feed livestock. It takes people to milk the cows. So we continue to deal with those struggles like everyone else. Our farms have been required to put in additional measures to make sure those workers are safe. That worker safety is always on top of the list of our farm operations, whether we're dealing with a pandemic or not. This just caused us to put in even further and more safety measures to make sure we're taking those precautions to keep the workers safe that are here. So labor is critically important, whether it's on the farm, whether it's in processing, whether it's in distribution, or even in sales. We have a very detailed and dynamic food industry. Labor is critically important at every level.
Well, and Ernie, we're sitting in for a part of our past interview with Dr. Laura Lamb. She's part of a research team that is trying to come up with a very effective, rapid COVID-19 testing system. And testing has been so important throughout this entire pandemic. And won't it be nice, to be able to have reliable testing as part of this as well?
Sure, and I think we're all looking forward to the day when we have a simple test that everyone can use. I've gotten tested for COVID and went to a facility that offered a rapid test and had the results back later that day. But wouldn't it be great, as you were talking with the doctor in the previous segment about a home test that we could use, or maybe use on the farm operations, a simple, quick test that we can utilize. Our scientific advancements that have been made through the COVID-19 pandemic have been outstanding. And isn't it amazing what can happen when we all work together and no one cares who gets the credit? We all do it for the benefit of the many, of our entire population. Agriculture is the same way. We've learned a lot through working through this. We'll continue to learn a lot, and we'll continue to advance and make sure that our consumers have the safest, most abundant, and affordable food supply in the world, all while working together across the state.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a very trying time for every individual and every company as well. There have been so many ups and downs because there are so many unknowns associated with it as well. But coming out of the backside, hopefully there is some positivity. What do you think the Farm Bureau has learned that is going to be a positive nugget that carries on to this world that we hope to get to soon, that is post-pandemic?
Well, jokingly, okay, but a little bit serious, we've learned that we can communicate in this form of technology. In many instances, agriculture has meetings just like every other business and industry have meetings. We've learned that we can utilize different forms of technology to communicate and do so effectively. And with that technology, that's brought about by advancements and through research and the development of new tools. The other part that I think is critically important is we've realized that we need to take a serious look at our food industry across the United States, have a discussion about what happens in the future if we have another situation. Let's hope that we never do, but what if we do have another situation? Is our food industry fully equipped to handle it? What did we learn coming out of it? And how do we make those adjustments and changes so that the food processing industry can keep up with the food production industry and then the food distribution industry? All three of them collaborate and continue to make sure our consumers are fed. I think one of the most important nuggets that we've learned is that communication is critical and that we have to work rapidly to adjust and that we have to be open to our thinking and find new ways to resolve problems. It's very easy to get set in our ways. We're humans, that's just human nature. Adjustment and change is hard, but we've learned that we have to be willing to adjust and change through this pandemic and take a look at what we're doing and are there ways to make it better. Our farmers will always farm. They have made and gone through technological advancements on our farm operations that are quite simply amazing. They'll continue to do that. We all need to continue to take those next steps in the event that we have another outbreak.
And you know what, Ernie, what you just said, those are words of advice, not just for the pharma industry, but all of us, an individual, a company, a business, a small business, a big business. We all need to learn like that because we get so set in our ways.
That's true. We as humans we get comfortable with what we're doing. We do it on a daily basis. And the only time we're forced to make change is when we deal with something difficult. And I always tell people that communication, whether it's good or bad, is critically important, and we can all learn from each other. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Agriculture is no different than any other industry. The common denominator is all those industries involve people. And if we can make changes throughout all of this, and it comes about through positive communication, we're all going to be better in the long run.
So Ernie Birchmeyer with us here on the Oakland County Megacast, he's with the Michigan Farm Bureau. And when you talk about technology as well, I saw, I think it was a 60 Minutes piece quite some time ago, but they were highlighting the technology that goes into farming now. This is not the old world. Technology plays a huge part in the farm industry and the economic outturn of the industry in general.
It's very true. A lot of your viewers and really a lot of our consumers across Michigan would be very surprised to see the technology that's on a modern farming operation. The computer technology and enhancements that are utilized on our farm operations are quite amazing. We have the ability through technology to take care of a field in small, by the foot sections if we need to. Think about a farm field, if you will, and that field needs to be cared for to meet the nutrients or the growing requirements of that particular crop. And we have the ability to supply the nutrients and the crop protection materials down to the small square foot sections if we need to in a field, so that we're not overusing technology or those products, and that we're meeting the specific needs. On our livestock operations, we have the ability through technology to feed cattle to their specific needs, depending on if it's a dairy cow, how much milk she's producing. If she's producing a lot of milk, she needs to eat more, so we can make our rations adjust to meet those nutritional needs of that animal. From an additional livestock technology standpoint, our barns are monitored, with heating equipment, with ventilation equipment, to make sure that those animals are comfortable and in an environment that's perfect for them. If it's hotter in the summertime, we can adjust fans and ventilations. If it's cold in the wintertime, we can adjust the heating units in those facilities to make sure the animals are comfortable. Some of our tractors can drive themselves. There are monitors inside some of that equipment that's more sophisticated than what most people have in their homes or similar to any other business and industry. You would be quite amazed. I would encourage you to go out and visit a farm. And if you'd like to meet a farmer and spend some time with them, we can make sure that happens.
I was just about to say, especially when you said some of your tractors can drive themselves. It really is kind of hard for so many people to grasp their minds behind it. I promise you, as soon as we can safely be in the company of other people, I am going to take you up on that offer. So Ernie, when you get a call from me one day, I'm like, Ernie, I want to come milk a cow.
We can make that happen. I get excited when I talk about agriculture. I grew up on a farm. I still farm today. I've been working with our farmers in Michigan through Michigan Farm Bureau for over 31 years. It's an incredible industry that, people need farmers every day, whether they realize it or not. And our farmers across Michigan and the United States are some of the most innovative, dynamic, incredible people you will ever meet. It's pretty incredible. Agriculture is the number 2 or number 3 industry in Michigan, depending on how tourism falls out and falls into place. But it's one of our leading industries here in Michigan.
So with that, Ernie, just your 2 cents, the huge revitalization and interest in urban farming, do you think that's helping people to understand the farming industry overall?
I think anytime someone has an opportunity to learn where their food comes from, that's a positive. If people have an opportunity, within those urban settings to produce food, I think that is outstanding. There are rules and regulations that need to be followed, so we need to make sure that we are doing that. We have a Right to Farm Act in Michigan that lays out generally accepted agriculture management practices for farm operations. Those are important to know, and they provide a framework that provides some protection for our farmers across the state. And whether you're farming out in a rural area, or you're wanting to do urban agriculture, just make sure that we're doing it with a knowledge base of the food production system and that we're meeting the needs of our consumers. And never, ever be afraid to learn and take on more knowledge when it comes to the food production industry.
Oh, I do think it's a great thing what some of these urban farms, especially in the city of Detroit, are doing to because there's so much vacant land. So they're trying to reuse this vacant land and be able to feed a neighborhood or a community. I think that's great. But I've also been in Detroit a lot. I've been in some of these abandoned plants and some of these abandoned buildings that have been left alone. And I do worry about the soil where some of these things are being grown. I'm like, I think the soil is important.
The soil is important, and soil is one of those natural resources that we don't make any more of. So we need to make sure that we take care of the soil. Our farmers across the state of Michigan do an incredible job taking care of their environment, managing the environment, because those farms have passed down from one generation to the next. And if we don't take care of that environment, there's going to be nothing to pass on, and it won't produce efficiently. The soil that's in Detroit on some of those vacant properties probably needs to be checked for the nutrient levels that are available for a growing crop. And we have many facilities across the state that can do soil tests to make sure that that soil is suitable for growing crops and meeting the nutritional needs of that crop that it is producing. But soil, water, air, all very critical to our farm operations, regardless of where they are.
So with that, Ernie, just another minute or two with you here on the Oakland County Megacast. I love talking to you because while some people may not find farming very exciting, I will tell you I have a very black thumb. The fact that I had one fern that made it from May until September made me jump for joy. So let me just give you, a balance or a perspective of where I'm coming from here as well. But I think that during this time, we've all come to realize the importance of the information about where our food is coming from. And while urban farming kind of has been a highlight in, a few years previous, this really has taken it to a new height. And with that, you talked about you were a farmer. It's a generational thing, but do you think this pandemic could possibly bring more interest into the farming interest to get people who maybe didn't grow up on a farm to want to be a part of your industry?
Sure, I think that's a possibility. I think it's also a possibility that they may not farm, but they may look at the entire food production industry as an opportunity for employment. One out of about every 4 people is in one way or another is employed in the food production industry. Certainly that starts at the farm level, but when you think about the number of people involved in transporting that product, whether it be to processing or to distribution or to the retail outlet, regardless of what that retail outlet is, the food industry involves, as I said, about 25% of the total people employed. And that's pretty fascinating. Along with that comes advancements in food technology. So if you're interested in the science end of food production, we're always looking for ways to make our food products better, whether it be last longer or package them differently, make them more safe and for our consumers. If it's in distribution, our distribution industry is incredible, and that's part of food production people don't think about. But that food has got to get to that end consumer somehow. So whether it be on the farming end, we're always looking for new entrants within the agricultural industry, the processing end, the distribution end, of the retail end. I think the pandemic helped to make people more aware of the food industry in general, and maybe that will spur some interest in new entrants into the agricultural industry.
Hey, Ernie, before we let you go, can you talk a little bit about the difference between corporate farms, which we're hearing more about, and independent farms?
Sure. Corporate farms the term is kind of a misnomer. 98% of all the farms in this country are owned by families. So there are a few that are owned by larger corporations, but even some of those family operations are incorporated for tax purposes and for management purposes. So while you might hear that term, it's important to dig into it and understand that 98% of the farms in this country are owned by families, whether it's an individual family or a group of families that own a larger operation. So they're all of them, their goal is to produce food. So people need to be a bit more hesitant and a bit more cautious when people want to use the term corporate agriculture, make sure you fully understand what you're talking about, because that term comes across negative to many. And I really caution people to not have a negative connotation or a negative thought process when they hear that term corporate agriculture. That's very important.
Well, there's a big cost in farming as well that I think people don't come to realize as well.
Farming is very capital intensive. There's no doubt about it. Some of the tractors that you see out in the fields, are $100,000 to $200,000 a piece. That technology and that equipment comes at a cost. Some of the larger harvesting equipment, can be $300,000. That's real money. That's real money to me anyway. And I think that would be real money to a lot of your listeners and viewers as well. Those buildings that house our livestock, they cost a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to heat some of those buildings or cool some of those buildings, depending upon the commodity that's there. All of that equipment has to be fueled by something. So, the tractors don't run themselves. There needs to be diesel fuel put inside of them, or the heaters and the coolers in those buildings, they take electricity. So there are lots of bills. And then we're all at the whim of Mother Nature, and we don't know what kind of weather we're going to get. So we need to keep that perspective in mind as well.
That's what's so hard about all of this. You try to plan and make all these steps to have the best crop possible, but at the end of the day, Mother Nature controls the outcome.
That's very true. Fortunately, we have some risk management tools that we can use. Our farms will have crop insurance. They will insure their buildings in the event of a catastrophe, whether it be weather related or some other fire, wind event. So we do have some risk management tools in place that we can utilize. But just like your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance, those cost money as well. So it's about managing your risk when it comes to protecting your investments.
Well, Ernie, it is always great having you on the show. I learned so much every single time you come on. Before we let you go, anything we didn't touch on that maybe you want to add before we say goodbye?
Well, as I challenged you, I'm going to challenge your other viewers and listeners to go out and meet a farmer. Whether that's here in the wintertime or we wait till next spring when things start to bloom, because we have a very vibrant industry here in Michigan. As I said early on, everything from fruits and vegetables, livestock and dairy, to row crop production, and certainly this time of the year, we can't forget about our Christmas tree operators that are working diligently to make sure that everyone's home is decorated for Christmas. Our industry is doing well. Our farmers are steadfast in their approach. They're very resilient, and they'll continue working every day to provide food to our consumers so that people can feel confident and comfortable in their food choices.
So, Ernie, we have a new Christmas tree farmer that took over a lot here close to my house, and I've been trying to get him on the show. People don't understand, like, they'll come down into these areas and they're basically living in campers to be able to sell their products. So it's like the sacrifice that they go through, and he is several generations on his Christmas tree farm, and the knowledge that they have and the amount that it takes for them to be able to, like you mentioned earlier, to be able to grow that tree and then bring that product down and to sell it. And they're away from their families during this time as well. So hopefully we can have him on pretty soon as well. I think he's a little camera shy though.
Well, that might be possible. And, you think about the fact that if Christmas tree production is their entire business, their business income is predicated on, about a 6-week window in, November and December for those Christmas tree sales. So you can understand why they would, move there with the commodity or the product that they have to sell and make sure that the customer is taken care of, their trees are taken care of, and that people have a positive experience. So it's a lot bigger and more complicated process than people realize, but they do it because they love their industry. They enjoy working with people. And, Christmas time, the holiday season, it's a great time to spread cheer and joy, and a Christmas tree is certainly part of that. I hope you're able to get him onto the show. I think it would be great for your viewers to listen to and watch.
Very much so, but I will admit that I've gone to the fake Christmas tree every year. I debate, but here's how I balance it. I get the live garland and all the wreaths are live, but the tree is fake because I just can't handle cleaning up those needles every year.
Well, that's part of it, isn't it?
But when you get the garland, the house smells good.
Absolutely. I have 6 different wreaths hanging outside, 4 on my house and 2 on the front of my barn that one of my neighbors who has a farm market sells in the fall time. So I'm right there with you. I love the smell of the fresh pine smell in the house in the wintertime and the ability to decorate for the holiday season.
Yeah, because I think that little tree behind you is probably fake.
That one is fake. That is correct. That's there for decorative purposes during this interview only.
Not to call you out at all, Ernie, during this interview.
That's okay.
Ernie Birchmeyer here with us with the Michigan Farm Bureau. Always great having you with us because, again, you're a wealth of knowledge and we appreciate your insight, but also your passion for the farming industry, which is such a huge economic boom to the state of Michigan and our economy.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I hope you and all of your listeners have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and make sure to consume plenty of Michigan's great agricultural products over the holidays.
We sure will. Happy holidays to you as well. That's going to wrap it up for the Tuesday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. For Tyler and myself, we want to say thank you for joining us, and also our gratitude and our thanks to Jake, Erica, and Larry behind the scenes for making this edition possible. Have a happy and healthy Tuesday.
Keeping West Bloomfield connected during the coronavirus outbreak. This is 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, 89.3 Lakes FM. Yes, it is 12 noon. It is time for lunch with Larry on this Tuesday. And Larry gave me specific orders. He said, Tyler, change the order. It's Tuesday afternoon. It's sunny. I'm in a partying mood. I want